Hi, welcome to Science Careers for Moms. I'm Anuki Kapasi, and I help you build a STEM career that fits your motherhood. Well, you know how you've been trying all of that work-life balance advice, and it sounds fine until you hit your first real snag. Maybe a deadline moves, a meeting runs late, or you've double booked your kids' activities. And suddenly, you're back at 10:30 p.m. with your laptop open and you're still trying to catch up and you're probably feeling like you're failing at both ends. Does that sound familiar? Well, in today's episode, we're going to do a reality check on work-life balance because a lot of advice out there just doesn't hold up for you as a mom working in STEM. It's advice that's actually based on false assumptions. Yeah, they've gotten viral clicks on social media, but they don't actually represent reality. Or some of the advice is just too good to be true. They're hacks that work for about 5 minutes. And the ones that bother me the most are the ones that are a whole lot of problem finding with very little problem solving. There's no solutions or next steps that are being offered. And so that's why I want to help you identify some of the popular but erroneous advice on balancing your STEM career and your home life. So get ready. We are going to set the record straight with 6 reality checks specifically for you. And you're going to want to keep listening to this episode because on the other side of the intro, I'm going to share all the details about a special free resource that I created, and it's going to pair perfectly with this episode. Welcome to Science Careers for Moms, the podcast for women in STEM who want to have both a meaningful career and be there for the important things in life. Hi, I'm Anuki Kapasi, a PhD researcher, business owner, and homeschooling mom of 2 boys. I'm passionate about helping moms in science and tech build careers that fit their whole life. Join me for honest conversations with other scientists who've gone through the same career decisions you're facing right now. You'll also get actionable frameworks that cut through burnout, work-life balance myths, and circular decision-making. If you're ready to make STEM career decisions that let you be an amazing mom, you're in the right place. Let's get into today's episode. Before we jump in, I want to take a quick second to shout out a listener and read a review that honestly made my day. Mandy sent me a message and said, "It felt like a friend was coming out of the podcast and giving me an encouraging hug." Mandy, thank you so much. That is exactly what I hope this show feels like for you. Smart, practical support, and a little exhale in the middle of a demanding week. So if you have been listening for a while and this podcast has helped you feel a little more grounded in your career decisions or finding some work-life balance, then would you please take 30 seconds to rate the show and leave a short review on Apple Podcasts? It really helps put the show in front of other women in STEM who are wondering, is it just me? And they find the show in a search and your review might be the one that actually helps them click on play. Thank you very much, and I really do read every single review. The reason that balance feels so elusive isn't because that you're not capable of achieving a balanced life. You're not a failure. It's actually the balanced advice that you're being told that's failing you. There are so many lies and confusion out there about work-life balance when you're a scientist and a mom. So these false narratives have kind of become part of a culture now, and they're not completely harmless beliefs either. They kind of set up as mental scripts that are hijacking the way we make decisions, and they control and shape what we as moms in STEM think might be possible or not. In that way, they kind of dictate what we should tolerate. Because you've heard some of this advice repeatedly, they now kind of function like these invisible rules. And in doing so, they narrow your thinking because they prevent you from fully examining what all of your options are. So the goal of today's episode is to help you identify some of these myths so that you stop working against work-life balance and instead design your career in a way that actually holds within your life. Okay, and as promised, I have a free download for you. You can actually pause the episode right now, go to the show notes, and go download that because it's going to be great to have handy while you're listening to this episode. It includes actually 10 work-life balance lies that are being told to moms in STEM. And this resource is going to really help you spot the tell to these work-life balance lies. You're going to be able to figure out how following through on this bad advice is actually costing you specific things in your career and your motherhood, and how you can very easily reset. I even give you a copy and paste AI prompt that just makes everything so much easier. And I really see working through these myths as a primer for achieving work-life balance. So again, you can get that resource by going to the show notes and clicking on the link for the resource, or you can head straight to my website at solveformom.com/resources and then click on the download button. Okay, so I'm actually going to walk you through 6 work-life balance narratives that are out there, and they sound normal, but they're actually trapping you into overcommitment. So it's the opposite of balance. And as I share these, I want you to notice which ones make you feel a little exposed, like, oh, that's me. And there's no judgment. I just want you to notice it, because that reaction is data, and it's going to help you pinpoint which false narrative you've been operating under and what your next step should be. So the first myth is that work-life balance isn't possible for moms in STEM. And I want to start here because this is the one that I think does the most damage. It sounds sophisticated, but it's actually hopelessness that's disguised as realism. When you believe it, here's what's going to happen. You're going to stop expecting balance. You're going to stop looking for it. You're going to stop designing for it. And then your career decisions start becoming very narrow focused. You start trying to design a career based on what you think is going to look most impressive and is probably going to cause you to burn out. What you should be thinking about are what decisions you should make that are going to be sustainable and that align with all these other parts of your life. And that is what I mean by career integrated with life. And that is when you have success in multiple domains of your life, not just in career. I've talked about this extensively before, and I'm going to link 2 episodes that I want you to check out if you want to hear exactly how I've busted this myth wide open. But it's possible that maybe you've never really seen a sustainable model of a serious professional in STEM and being a present mom. I mean, it makes sense that you might think it's actually impossible to have work-life balance. And I want to say, yes, it is hard. Your work requires deep focus. It's unpredictably intense in different seasons. You're going to have demanding meetings and deadlines and travel and grant cycles. And of course, parenting requires constant context switching as well, with pickups and bedtime and sick days and just the mental load that you're always carrying. Your day kind of becomes a game of ping pong, and you're never fully at work or fully at home. But it is still possible, and it gets dramatically less hard once you learn all about career-life integration. The second myth is that women are just victims of the STEM work structure. Now, there's some truth inside this. The bias that we women experience in science is real. But when the system is rigged, becomes the whole story, it steals all of your leverage. It turns you into a passive character in your own career. It trains you to shrink your voice, and it keeps you from negotiating and asking and redesigning and testing your options. And I want to say that there is a real cost to that, maybe even a bigger cost. Listen, I know that this might be hitting a nerve, and I'm not trying to gaslight you in any way. I have been in the very same rooms and situations that you have as well. But I'm trying to say that you don't have to freeze into helplessness. Both can be true. STEM culture can be brutal for women, especially those that are trying to be active and present moms. And you still have strategic options. And so that's why I teach that in order for you to make confident career decisions, you have to start focusing on what you can control. Choose your next step on purpose. Don't give up because the system is unfair. So here's the point of what I'm trying to say here. This isn't really about fixing the system today. There's important work that's being done at the policy level, and I definitely applaud that and have tried to do my own share of that as well. But what I want you to focus on is putting yourself back into the driver's seat of your own career and life so that you can have both without constantly feeling like you have to choose or you have no say in the matter. And by the way, this is exactly why I created the Career Life Integration Protocol and why I talk about all of this stuff on this podcast and to these amazing women that I invite on the show. The Career Life Integration Protocol, or CLIP as I call it, is the same framework that I've used and that I coach during our one-on-one strategy sessions. But I want to be able to expand the reach of this framework. And so I'm giving you a heads up here that I'm working on trying to make it more accessible to you because I have limited availability for one-on-one sessions. As you know, I have a very full and balanced life. I homeschool, I do research just like you, and I have this business here trying to help women in STEM. So I want you to stay tuned because over the next few weeks and months, I'm going to be sharing simple, low-friction ways for you to start using CLIP that isn't dependent on me showing up live. And so in that way, it's going to work for your schedule and as well as mine. The third work-life balance myth is that if you're a mom, you can't be a serious scientist. Now, this one is an attack on your identity, and I don't think that you believe this at all. But sometimes you work in an environment where other people around you think that. What it does is it turns your caregiving constraints into some sort of character flaw, as if you have to apologize in some way for being both a mom and a scientist. You can be both. But here's the question. Should your seriousness as a scientist be defined by your availability? Is choosing your family a moral failure as a professional? I want you to reconsider this black and white type of thinking here. Your credibility doesn't come from you actually having to be everywhere all the time. Your credibility comes from being the person whose work actually delivers and lands exactly how it's supposed to. So I want you to sort of widen the scoreboard, whether that's how you're measuring yourself or others are measuring you. Your credibility should be measured based on the quality of your work, whether you're meeting all of your deadlines, your overall contribution, the kinds of ideas that you've been generating and offering up, and how you are problem solving and getting things done. So here's a kind of example of what this could look like in real life. Maybe there's this unwritten rule in your office place that serious people always stay late and they say yes to everything, and that the more reachable you are, the better you are. But then you come back from maternity leave and that is not a rule that you can follow anymore. That doesn't fit your life as a new mom. And so you come back from maternity leave and what do? You start overcompensating. You start joining optional 5:30 p.m. meetings and you start replying to emails at 10 p.m. and you're doing analysis after you put your kids to bed because you're scared that if you're not constantly visible, you're going to be treated like you're not committed. But after you use the Career Life Integration Protocol, you're going to build a work plan that fits your reality, whether it's your childcare duties, the level of energy you have, or varied pickup times from school. People are going to start associating who you are, your identity, with the clarity of your ideas and how you are able to follow through on the things you actually said yes to and publish worthy work that you produce, not based off of who's going to stay the latest in the office. With this type of strategy, your reputation is going to stabilize, and because that bias disappears, you've written over that unwritten rule. You have also shifted the way that people measure you. It's shifting from hours that you put in to impact that you create. Now, myth number 4 is that women in STEM need to have a stable career before they can become moms. This frames motherhood as something that you get to do only after you prove yourself in your career. And in a lot of STEM lanes, that finish line is going to keep moving. What are you going to do? You're going to keep postponing your life? And listen, I have lived the cost of this kind of thinking, okay? I have 2 beautiful boys, but my husband and I, we are both scientists, and we both thought that we needed to get to a certain stage in our careers before we could even get married and before we could start a family. So we actually dated for a long time and we constantly prioritized our careers, even over our relationship. So we had a long distance relationship for a while. After we finally got married, 7 years in, we waited another 2 years before we had kids. So I was definitely on the later side when I became a mom, even for the first time. I struggled, and luckily, by the grace of God, we have 2 kids, but both of us imagined having a much larger family. There will always be that regret for me that I didn't build the larger family that I always thought I would have. And I don't want that regret for any other woman out there. It is totally fine if that is not the choice that you want to make. But if you happen to be one of those women out there that truly absolutely wants this, then putting biology and career planning into a sequential linear timeline is the opposite of whole life planning. Career life integration means that you build your career plan with your life in mind. And if it's what you want, then with motherhood in mind as well. So you don't have to put your life on hold while you're trying to chase that next professional achievement. The fifth false assumption is that academia is the only career path for real scientists. And this one's kind of a scarcity story, and it's one of the fastest ways that you can talk yourself into staying stuck in your career if you're a scientist. Now, you've trained really long hours, and for many, many years, you have invested so much of yourself. And so that is why it can feel like you have to use it in the right way, all of this training and knowledge that you acquired. And if you don't, you're kind of wasting it, right? Many STEM training environments only spotlight academia. And they leave you with this impression that if you want to be a hardcore scientist, then that is the main track. That's the one you should be aiming towards because everything else is selling out. So your brain starts to conclude that either I push harder and make it in academia or I'm going to quit. Science isn't for me. We do have a huge problem with retention of women in science, probably because of this. We aren't being shown that the middle path is also a credible one. And the truth is that there are dozens and dozens of credible STEM career paths. And by the way, research happens outside of academia all the time as well. So if you're like me, who really loved research but didn't want to go down the academic track, there are so many options to have the best of both worlds. As a scientific consultant, I get to engage in hypothesis-driven research while enjoying the stimulating, exciting life of solving problems through consulting. Now, you're going to hear about a lot of other jobs and roles on this podcast. They're all valid. There are tons of industry-based jobs for scientists and engineers in biotech and pharma, medical device companies, robotics, energy, all kinds of things. You can also take your tech skills and reapply them in a non-tech sector. Like if you are a data scientist or a machine learning engineer and you use that in finance or healthcare or retail, you can use your scientific expertise much further down the product line, for example, to make products safer or to improve their efficiency as a quality or regulatory or validation expert, which is especially common in pharma and medical devices, where you make those products safer and improve the efficacy of them. Or you could look into jobs that involve different stakeholders. Maybe you can be a kind of scientific or technical product manager where you're bridging between customers and the engineers. Or if you go into clinical research or clinical trials, you would be running those studies on behalf of industry, but engaging with patients. Of course, there's all kinds of STEM adjacent and non-traditional jobs as well, and each of these roles have various work arrangements that you could factor in to establish better work-life balance. And I actually am going to link 2 episodes that talk about all of the flexible job setups that I have had in the past, which could serve as models or maybe give you some ideas of what could work for you. And the last advice, number 6, is that saying no is going to tank my credibility as a scientist. This one is a boundary myth, and it's absolutely based in fear. In a lot of science and tech environments, the quote-unquote ideal worker is the person who can stay late and travel and say yes with no friction. And so this one can hit especially hard in STEM because when you're a mom, it can feel like you're already being watched. So saying no kind of feels risky. You might worry that if you say no, you're going to look like you're uncommitted, you're going to maybe lose momentum, you might get passed over for some kind of promotion, and that if you are not constantly producing, you might fall behind. And if you slow down, that's going to lead you to losing credibility. Now, we talked a little bit about this already earlier, but this one is more about the boundaries and being able to say no. Because I actually see boundaries as a professional skill. They protect your credibility because they protect what you're able to follow through with. If you make yourself over available, that's absolutely going to lead to burnout. And then that burnout is going to lead to missed deadlines. Having clear boundaries protects your credibility more than over availability does. The skill part in all of this is that you are going to stop automatically saying yes to everything. And it doesn't have to be this dramatic thing. You just become a little more precise. So instead of saying sure, you are thinking about the trade-offs and saying, okay, well, yes, I can do A by Friday or B by Wednesday. Which one is the priority? And so you help others see that there is a visible trade-off when you say yes to something. And you're going to stay reliable because you're becoming very clear what that yes actually means. And in that way, it's a very smart career strategy. And by establishing these boundaries, you're able to protect other things like your sleep and reducing the amount of meetings that you have, which reduces your context switching, which then improves your focus. You're going to notice that your work quality will naturally improve because your cognition is basically coming back online. And it's very counterintuitive, but when you're able to say no to some things, you actually become more effective. Okay, so if the problem isn't you, and the solution isn't that you just need to try harder to finally get this balanced life, then what's the solution? Well, the solution is to swap this false narrative that you're operating under and switch it for the truth-based model. And what you need to do is to start making small shifts towards that version, the realistic version. Imagine that you have a design for something that you're trying to build. If you're basing that design on some assumptions, but then when you start to build a thing, it's not what you want, then you have to go back and reassess your assumptions. So these work-life balance advice and tips that people are giving you are like assumptions that we're making about our life as a scientist and mom. And clearly, the design's not working. So it's time to ditch that advice and start working off of a new frame of mind. And if you're listening to this and thinking, okay, I get it, but how do I actually use this when my week is already on fire and things are just falling apart? I can't seem to catch up. That's exactly why I made that free companion PDF that goes right along with this episode. It's called the 2-Minute Reality Check, 10 Lies to Stop Believing Today so that you can actually feel on track. Go and download it from the show notes. Just skim it once and keep it handy. And then the next time that you feel like you're failing at both your work and being a mom and you're going down that negative spiral, well, you can go ahead and try that 2-minute reset. And it's really going to help you make that right next decision, the one that you make on purpose, with intention and with all the options laid in front of you, instead of feeling like you're forced in a corner, so that you can make your next decision on purpose with intention and feeling like you have lots of options to find balance in your life as a mom and a scientist, rather than feeling like you've been pushed into a corner and you've been forced to make one choice that you're not 100% happy with. I hope you get that resource. I hope it brings you some freedom. And you're going to see that it reinforces everything that we've talked about in this episode, plus more. With career life integration, you still have constraints, but you're going to start to feel calmer because your calendar is finally aligned with the reality of your mom life. And you can make decisions without feeling this guilt that you're disappointing somebody all the time. But without career life integration, it's going to be more of the same. This loop is going to continue. You're going to overcommit, have late night catch-up times, and just feel exhausted. You are going to keep looking for new systems because you think that's going to change everything, but it's the underlying myth. You're operating off of the wrong type of advice. And eventually, your body, your family, or your job is going to force you to reevaluate and reset. And sometimes those things can happen at the worst possible time. So thank you so much for spending your time with me today. Whatever you take away from this episode, just know that there are real things that you can do to fully integrate your science career into your whole life. I'll meet you back here really soon for the next episode on Science Careers for Moms. I hope today's episode will help you make your next right move as a scientist and a mom. And if you enjoyed it, would you share it with a friend or post it on your social media? Your voice truly helps other women in STEM find these conversations when they feel stuck. I also want to make this show an even greater experience for you. So it would be amazing to hear what you think when you leave a review on Apple Podcasts. And don't forget to add this show to your playlist right now. Thank you for making my show a part of your day, and I'll see you soon for another episode of Science Careers for Moms.